This is the High Desert Luthiery podcast with luthier Doug Otto.
I challenge myself on every single build to do something new, to learn something different.
Welcome to the High Desert Luthiery podcast. I'm Perry from Otto Guitars. There's a logo there, and I'm the creator of the High Desert Luthiery Invitational, or as we're calling it now, HDLI. This show will happen twice a year in celebration of luthiers, luthier-adjacent creators, musicians, and the art that comes from combining all these things. The HDLI is a unique event that encourages actual support in the music community by providing free booths to the vendors and free admission to the public. The event includes vendors and musicians that are curated by me to create a cohesive, organized event. The HDLI encourages community and collaboration amongst the artists. This podcast is one way to help us all come together. To learn about the show and the artists, please visit the website highdesertluthiery.com. On to today's show, I am sitting here with Doug Otto of Otto Guitars. Whereabouts are you here in New Mexico, Doug?
I'm up in Rio Rancho, so just north of Albuquerque, kind of out in the sticks out in Rio Rancho, but that's kind of nice. It's quiet out here.
Yeah, right on. And so tell me about the kind of things that you make in your shop.
Yeah, I've been probably a maker since I was a little kid. All kinds of stuff, and from electronics to woodworking to concrete, 3D printing, doesn't matter. It's kind of one of those, I like to make things. So, lately that has been electric guitars and electric basses, primarily guitars. Only made one bass so far, but I have a client talking about building another one. So, things are looking good.
Right on.
I also started winding my own pickups about 6 months ago. Decided that, if I'm going to be scratch building guitars, that should be the next follow-on,
Very cool. What are you doing for your pickups?
Right now, the ones that I've been doing primarily are P90s. I'm getting ready to start up a set of single coils for a build that I'm doing right now, but I've been kind of a mix of old and new with the P90s. I'm doing an Alnico 2 magnet, so it's kind of a weaker magnet, so more of a vintage sound, but then I'm overwinding a bit. So it gives it a bit of a spank, which is working out pretty well.
Awesome. I love it when builders take on the pickup making to sort of search for a signature voice, and finding that recipe for what that might be. It takes some work. I've done it plenty of times over and over again, but I love how it can really complete the custom look, especially if you're getting a little outside of the box or a lot outside of the box. And so the very little bit I know about pickups, I know P90s are usually single coils, and you said you were working on some single coils, so would that be like Strat or Kelly style?
Yeah, that's like Strat style. I'm building sort of it's not a Strat body, but sort of a Strat style pickup arrangement for the next build that I'm working on right now. So got some Strat pickups, and I'm going to do them very similar way that I do my P90s. My signature is I use red bobbins, and rather than plastic covers, I use nickel open face surrounds. So dresses them up a little bit, gives them a little bit different look, and makes people look at them and go, "Hey, where did you get those?"
Yes, definitely. It sounds like you have a plan, and I know with Strat pickups, the tendency is to have the bridge hotter, and as you get to the neck, the pickups kind of calm down a bit, and the spacing changes to accommodate that taper.
Sure.
Not all the time, but most of the time. My sort of bucket list Strat set is where they're all the same strength. And to do a bar magnet instead of pole pieces. So
cool.
it's essentially the same identical pickup in 3 different spots. Can you tell me more about this Strat set?
Yeah, it also is using Alnico 2s. That's kind of I sort of like the warm you get out of the lower strength magnet. But I too am planning on winding all 3 of these the same, with the exception of the middle pickup. It will be reverse polarity, reverse wound. So As long as, you've got using more than one pickup in there, it'll have some hum canceling.
Right on. You're doing these in the single coil format. I always like the
Yeah.
look of seeing like three mini buckers, three humbuckers, three silk
Yeah.
ones in a row. I always love that look. And that's kind of the footprint that I take with my pickups whenever I make them. Um, they're so crude when I make them. I've never gone the extra mile to like spruce them up. And I think it was just based on my tooling. And I know that tooling is something that you have. Can you tell me about like the tools that you're using to make these pickups?
Yeah. I'm using it's just it's a microprocessor controlled winder. Pretty simple thing. I do have now, I haven't used it yet. I'm going to try it on these Strat pickups. An auto traverse for the pickup. So I can sort of dial in the amount of scatter I'm building into there and keep it somewhat consistent. So if I'm going to make the same pickup again, I can have a pretty good, a pretty solid understanding that it's going to be, it's going to have a very similar tone, very similar character. That takes some of the randomness away from the hand wind a little bit, but there's still plenty in there because of the way that it's happening. But it should give me a little bit more consistency to make sure, one pickup sounds like another. And since, I'm selling some of these on Etsy these days, you want them to kind of sound all the same. You don't want somebody to pick up one that, hey, I got one of your pickups a while ago and it was great. So I got another and it doesn't sound anything like it. Want to avoid that. So kind of looking at some strategies to add some consistency in there.
Yeah, definitely. Brand consistency is very important. Are you using pre-made parts or are you manufacturing all of your different parts that make up the pickup?
So a little bit of both. For the P90s and these Strat pickups, I bought bobbins. I've been working with both my CNC and 3D printer for making some custom bobbins for some ideas that I've had. I haven't come up with anything yet that I'm ready to show anybody, but I've been tweaking on it. Kind of fun, to push the boundaries and see what you can get.
Definitely. Yeah, I really wanted to take your pickups for a ride and at the show. I was everywhere. It
You
was
were running all over the place.
it was so bad. That was kind of embarrassing. I saw a little short like where I'm just like cutting through the crowd trying to oh my God. I mean that's kind of how it goes when you're doing double duty trying to run a booth and trying to
Yep,
uh,
absolutely.
run
It's
the
hard to do
show.
both.
Yeah, and I'm sure it'll be the same thing at the next show, but hopefully a little tighter. Um, we have like almost 50 vendors lined up for the next show.
Yeah, I saw that. That's looking pretty exciting. The thing that surprised me the most about the last show was just I had no idea how many builders we had in the local area. So building that community, bringing folks together, that's really cool.
Yeah, I think that for the longest time, the only people that I knew of, the only builders that I knew of, that were like kind of like I make a lot of my hardware, and I don't do it all the time. It just kind of it happens when it happens. Sometimes like I just
Sure.
want a certain look and I am not married to any brands or anything like that. I'll just use whatever I need to do to get the look that I want. But I make a lot of my hardware and in the past I was making all my bridges and recently I just had some different ideas about doing some sort of throwback style designs and
Sure.
I'm really loving that more and more builders that I'm meeting are making more and more of their parts. It adds so much to the finished product. Like we go through all this trouble already to make a, an instrument,
Right.
and the more and more custom stuff I see, even if it's only pickups, like it's a great place to start. And I'm trying to work out a way, and I'm a woodworker. Like quite
Sure.
simply, I'm a woodworker. I dabble in finish work because I'll be honest with you, I struggle. I really struggle
Right.
with finish work because it's not wood. and and everything else is just kind of like my approach is a woodworking approach, and it's a really simple woodworking approach, very few hand tools, and
Sure.
just I would say brute strength in the mental fortitude area, and just not giving up because
Yeah.
I'll mess it up until I get it right. And so I really love to see newer builders coming into this and just killing it. It took me it took me decades to like kind of figure it out. And I love how everyone's embracing all the information that's available now and putting together some pretty solid stuff. How long have you been making guitars?
I've only been building guitars just over a year. Like I said, I've been a maker all my life, and sort of, one of my superpowers is I can fix anything. Yeah, I can look at it, tell you how it works, and then probably fix it. So I like getting my hands in stuff, and it's really kind of a funny story how I got back into guitars. In high school, I had a small band. I played very mediocre bass, and I had did a little bit of guitar, but I put that down for a long time. And then here a few years ago, I guess just like 2 years ago, my wife and I were looking to remodel a bathroom here. And one of the things in the remodel was one of those bowl sinks that sits up above the countertop. And my wife was trying to visualize how far above this countertop the bowl sat. And so I go out in the garage and I grab my ruler. And my ruler is one of those where, it's got like a half an inch on the end of it. So you've got to, kind of adjust. And it was frustrating because I couldn't show her exactly how tall the thing was. So it's like, okay, I got to fix that. So we after that, a day or two later, I jumped on Google and looked up a couple of shop rules and found a couple, ordered them. They came in, it was great. Didn't pay any attention to where I was buying them from. A few days later, I started getting marketing emails from Stumat, which is where I bought the rulers from. And one of those marketing emails was like $100 kit for like a 2/3 scale Strat. It was like this big. And I was like, you know what? That looks like a lot of fun. And I bought it and put it together and had a blast, so pretty soon now I got to build one, buy a body, a rough body, do all the binding work and all routing and all that, buy a pre-made neck, slap that together. And it's like, well, okay, now that we've done that, I guess we got to start from scratch. And started into my first scratch build, which was a Tele, because, you got to have one. Everybody needs one Telecaster. And from there, I've just started doing my own thing. It was really, I signed up for the Great Guitar Build-Off 2023 this year, put on by Crimson Guitars, with no aspirations of winning. And it was more of a, forcing myself to do it and put my stuff out there. And part of that was, I challenged myself on every single build to do something new, to learn something different. And I had added a few of those things into the guitar for that particular build, but it was like, this is a scratch build contest. I don't think I should be buying pickups. So I decided it's time to learn, and if I'm going to be producing a scratch built guitar, it ought to be as scratch built as I can make it. So that was sort of how it evolved.
Wow, that's a great attitude to have about it. I just was introduced to the Great Guitar Build-Off via Chuck in his interview, and I kind of live in a bubble. Um, I don't get out a whole lot. I just kind of do my own thing, and I use social media for sort of advertising my work, but
Sure.
I don't necessarily use it for fun. Like it's not really fun for me.
Right.
It's not something that's important to me. But it did play a big role. Instagram played a huge role in getting all the vendors for this upcoming show, and especially finding musicians. And so I'm learning to embrace it a little more. Now I'm excited, like, oh, I don't have to go out to do this. Like and moving out to New Mexico, prior to that, I'd been working as I was a working musician and and a luthier, like for you know
Sure.
20 some years. And moving out here, not being in a band, not having any business anymore, my priorities changed. And now I go to bed early, and and so like going out is just not a thing anymore. And like getting to learn about the music scene just never happened. I didn't really I left all my music equipment in California because we downsized, and so gigging out of the
Right.
question. And it's great to finally start learning about the musicians out here and what they're into, and what's kind of hip, and trying to put together a musician roster for the event that is diverse, and also like quality, I guess. Like, because if you have a bunch of people just kind of like milking it, it's not like just going through the motions. Like, people don't want to hear that. And so I want it to be engaging, but I also don't want it to be just like one genre.
Sure.
And yeah, so I learned to embrace Instagram, and what I was understanding about the Great Guitar Build Off is that it's like you kind of document your build through social media.
Yeah. It started up during the pandemic, right in the middle of 2020. And that was sort of when I started seeing the videos on YouTube, and I thought it was pretty cool. And then, and at the same time, I was building interest in, becoming a builder myself, and then learning more skills. And so I kept apprised of those and kept following things up. And then when they announced it this year, I signed up for it. It was really surprising. Chuck and I didn't know each other until we both started posting about Great Guitar Build Off. And it's like, oh, hey, you're in that too. And you're in New Mexico, so it was really cool. And, like I mentioned earlier, that was one of the really neat things about the show was meeting folks that are builders in the area that I had no idea. There was one other builder that I was aware of who had reached out to me on Facebook, Robert from Stolen Guitar Company. He was at the show as well. He and I had met up a few times because we had connected online. He'd seen me posted in a couple of Facebook groups, and it was like, "Oh, I'm local. We got to meet." So it was really cool knowing that was more than just the two of us. So that was great.
Oh, cool. So you were aware of Robert and Chuck before the show. That's awesome.
Well, I met Chuck just shortly before the show on Instagram because of the Great Guitar Build Off, but I had never actually met him in person.
I see.
Robert and I have, we've done shop tours and talked about stuff and some of our builds and whatnot. But just getting to know Chuck through the show and then through this contest.
I see. That is so cool. So that was all really new, really fresh for everybody there. Like,
Yeah.
I knew I knew maybe two or three builders there. I'm trying to get ahead. I think I just three, like, personally. Oh, you know what? I met Patrick at the New Mexico Guitar Show,
Okay.
which is one and done. Um, and that's where we met. And then Tyler of Nasty Mammoth, he is one of my students.
Yeah, that's cool.
But other than that, like, that was my first time meeting the majority of those people there, the builders, and we'll be meeting a lot more builders on this next show. With your designs, what I tried to talk to you about this at the show, and it was just like, oh, going this way and that way. What was your inspiration for your designs?
Um, so I draw inspiration from several places. One comes from, I really like outdoors. When I lived in California, I was a Yosemite junkie. I was there 40, 50 days a year, leading photo workshops, helping people learn to use their cameras. It was my jam. I loved Yosemite. So the outdoors and whatnot are really sort of special to me. So I really enjoy some of the natural woods. So a lot of what I look for when I'm doing a design is really wood forward. What kind of wood am I looking for to use here? But as far as the design of the bodies and whatnot, there's certainly quite a bit of Fender influence in there. The single cut that I have on my guitar looks an awful lot like a telly horn. but I've tweaked the body over a few designs. There's a little offset in there. Added another cut. The body's a little narrower. So it's just sort of evolved. The first guitar I built was a Telecaster, like I said, because everybody needs one. But after that, I wanted it to be my own thing, so I wanted it to be my own design. I didn't want to go buy a template from somebody and say, oh, I made this guitar, when really I just, ran my router around somebody else's template. It was kind of it's still evolving, but I've kind of settled in on one basic sort of shape. It's modified itself a little bit, but for the most part, I'm hanging true to that. You can kind of see the paper template up over the wall up behind me. That was the first one I built from my own design from scratch. So that one stays up there. That'll get referred to again someday.
Do you have names for these shapes?
This first shape is named April after my wife, because after I had built a couple of guitars, she said, you should build me one for my birthday. So it was a bit of a challenge. She is not really a guitar player. So I had to take a few things into account. One of them, she's left-handed. So, I had to build a lefty. I can't play it. I can click notes on it to make sure that the setup is okay. But I can't play a chord on a left-handed guitar to save my life. I also decided to make it like a 24-inch scale. So more like Fender Mustang kind of size. So, a little smaller scale, a little easier, almost like a student guitar, but in flamed maple, mahogany neck, whole nine. So, really pretty guitar, but really kind of sized as a student model to really kind of fit her better and make it easier for her to start playing.
I see. Yeah, we end up, problem solving for a lot of these sort of custom build scenarios. It's hard to not say custom build when a lot of them are really one-off.
Yeah.
But I associate, just to acclimate everyone to what custom build means to me, it's when you're building for somebody.
Right.
So in a workshop, that would be a custom order, even though every instrument you might be doing is one-off. In my shop, I'm not always building for somebody else.
Right.
Sometimes I'm building for myself. Sometimes it's just an idea that I have. And so when I talk about custom build, there's so many challenges that come with that. Trying to make it fit to the person, trying to achieve what they're looking for, what they want it to sound, that sort of stuff. There's so many, it's just so challenging. And so that's cool that you've taken on something like that. Do you have any favorite materials or any materials that you've just found like resonance with?
Yeah. So, from a wood perspective, I'm a big fan of limba, both white and black. I also have just recently kind of started using canary wood for necks, and I really like it. I'm going to be using a lot more of that. It's beautiful wood. It's fantastic to work. I'm really fond of it. I have a friend who's a serious woodworker, and he suggested the canary wood to me, and I was really happy about it. The other thing that I use on every single build is Italian acetates, the like tortoise shell or whatnot. So every single one of my builds has that somewhere. It may be truss rod cover. It may be part of my logo. In this neck that I'm building right here, it's actually in my head plate. So, and that will have other, appointments elsewhere on the guitar, but it's just a unique material and it really dresses it up. And it's fun because, you can find it all different colors and abstract patterns and whatnot. And then sometimes I'll sort of design around it, the color of the guitar. I'll find a piece of acetate I'll really like. And it's like, okay, I need to have something that I can use this on now. So it'll actually kind of start some of the builds.
Very unique. Where are you sourcing that?
I've got a vendor on Etsy that I get most of the stuff from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they import it so you can and have it in stock so you could get it from them fairly quickly. Some vendors you order directly from Italy and it takes a while to get here. But I found a couple of sources where I can get it turned around pretty quick. As builders, we want to stand out. And if you're buying all your stuff from Stumac or LMI until they closed yesterday, you've got a lot of the same, people have a lot of the same gear, a lot of the same hardware, a lot of the same, bindings and whatnot. So that's why, it's just kind of one way to set myself apart, and add some uniqueness to my builds.
Very good. What is it that you like or that draws you to the limba?
The way the grain is, it's got that nice tight grain, and it also reacts to grain fill really well. You can add a little black tint or something in your grain fill, and it drops into those little crevices, and it really gives it a nice contrast and a nice cast. It's got a nice weight. It works really well, and just honestly, I just like the look of it.
Yeah, it's pretty sharp. And over at Albuquerque Exotic Woods, I'm always plugging them. It helps that I work there. Uh, they have for a newer woodworking shop that's not necessarily geared towards guitar makers or like
Right.
master grade lumber or anything like that. The stuff they get in is so quality, especially the limba, the black limba. I
Yeah.
never thought of it as being like a porous grain structure, like
It's
mahogany.
very tight, but it's got some gaps in it like mahogany. So it will hold some filler.
Yeah, and I never considered that because I don't use grain filler. So, here's the next thing. What kind of finishes are you using?
So I love nitro, but it's a pain in the butt. So, I've only used it on a few. I've varied things around. I've used some polymerized, some hard wax oil stuff. I've used Crystalac. I've used some tung oil based product. It's a white thing varnish. It gives really nice luster to the wood, but it's not a very high shine. So I've been kind of experimenting a bit, playing quite a bit with epoxies these days for grain filling, as well as some of my finishes as well. Playing around, learning new things, and seeing what I can do with them.
What do you like about nitro?
I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm an old guy. There's something about the feel of it, the way that it ages, and even the smell when you open the case. That just screams old guitar. And it just kind of gets a patina as it gets old, and it'll start to check a little bit. It's just kind of one of those finishes that sort of takes on a life of its own.
Very good. Yeah, I've seen the same thing happen with some shellac finishes. They check out real nice. They'll patina really nice.
Yeah,
And but yeah, I always ask about finish. I just feel like it's something that I struggle with. I'll be honest with that. And I just never settle on something. And I feel like once I settle on a product, it becomes unavailable. Um, and like just having worked in the industry, like formulas are always changing,
right.
and it's not going to be the same forever. So like you have to kind of recalibrate. And I've been settling into shellac a lot more because it's something that you can manipulate a lot easier and control a lot easier. And either way, finish work ends up being quite a bit of work.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. That's one of the cool things about all the information that's available online these days. You can watch other builders and get ideas for, how they're doing things. It's like, oh, I wonder if I could adapt that, and do this to it and then use that on my thing. I'm still kind of searching for my perfect finish. I've got several that I really like, but I'm still looking around. Every time I do a guitar, I'm thinking, well, maybe I'll do something a little different on this one. I think eventually I'll settle in on probably a solid favorite. But then again, it's nice to have options too, depending on, what you're looking to produce.
Definitely. I mean, I have a lot of respect for builders that can just settle on something and use that no matter what. Like I used nitro so much in the past, it almost killed me, and that was one factor. But like putting all the work in and how long it takes to cure, and then
Yeah.
coming back the next day and seeing all that work gone. Because
Yeah. And that was definitely, the choice, the guitar that I built for a Great Guitar Build Off. I had originally planned to use nitro, but things started getting tight and started running out of time. And, pretty soon I've only got like a month left, and it's like not getting nitro on this and getting it buffed out in a month. So, looking for something else.
yeah. Yeah, finish work for me, the great headache. It's like I've eliminated a few things that I was just never really like. Inlay was one of them. I never got into it.
Right.
I was talking to Chuck about this. I did it for years. It was my logo and with other like little things, tried a few big things and was just like, not for me. I love looking at it.
Yeah.
I've had the opportunity to work with many talented inlay artists, and it's not for me. So I eliminated that fairly recently. And, finish work was the next one. And it's like, Yeah, I might cross this one off the list pretty soon too. I mean, I just like bare wood on
Yeah,
my hands. I love the feel of it, and maybe with the hard wax over it, depending on the wood, maybe not. And
yeah,
um, I think as time goes by, I might move closer and closer to that. And there's a lot of old ideas and opinions about, well, it's not a complete instrument unless it's got a finish on it. Putting this High Desert Luthiery thing together is about, saying there's more than just that. If you
yeah,
limit yourself to these ideas, then, you're really shutting yourself off to new experiences. And so learning that I really favor the bare wood. It's been a interesting adventure trying to figure out how to preserve that, how to make it so that if you do
yeah.
get it, it doesn't raise the grain and become rough. And
Right,
how do you
right.
maintain that? All those sort of challenges. And so
You
we
know,
talked. Go ahead.
I was just, I think we all try to, to be unique in what we do and kind of develop a look, because you want people to be able to look at your instrument and go, I know who made that. Most of us aren't out here trying to build, commodity guitars. We're building art. So it's not going to conform to the rules that people have, and it's going to be outside the box sometimes, and sometimes maybe not everyone will like it. But again, it's art. It's an expression. It's an extension of your personality. So I think developing a no finish is, I think that's cool. That can become a look that is kind of unique to you, and I think that's an important part of this.
Definitely. Very well said. Are there any artists, like local artists, that you're working with, or have you got your instruments into anybody's hands?
You know, uh, Not on stage. I've had a few casual acquaintances that I've handed stuff to, had them play it just because just for full disclosure, I'm a terrible guitar player. I was terrible in high school. I put it down for 40 years, and I'm still terrible. But I have a lot of fun doing it. It's just I don't play for too many other people because I'm sort of self-conscious about the fact that I'm terrible. But it's nice to hear, somebody who knows what the hell they're doing play your instrument. So there's been a few opportunities where I've been able to get one in somebody's hand. I'm looking forward to the show actually, and being able to see some music being played on stage with the instruments that are being created here.
Very good. And are there any sort of artists that you're looking for that you would like to hear? Like, is there an artist that you can think of that, not local, it could be anywhere, that you would love to hear play one of your instruments?
There's probably a lot of them. Like I said, I'm kind of an old guy, so I'm very much classic rock, 60s and 70s stuff. So just about any of those guitar players, many of them aren't alive, the ones that I'd love to have play my gear now. And like you said, I've become sort of a hermit. When I'm not at work, I'm at home generally. I don't go out a lot, so I'm not super in touch with the music scene. But I'm working to get myself a little more educated in that regard.
Very good. And, with that said, where would you like to see your company in 2 years?
I have a day gig. I work full time, so this is very much sort of a side hustle slash hobby for me. So I'd like to get to the point where maybe I'm regularly selling some pickups, Reverb or Etsy or whatnot, and maybe 6 or 8 guitars a year. I'd love to do more commission work because you can only build so many guitars for yourself before your significant other starts complaining about it. So you got to find somebody else to buy your gear. So that's kind of really where I'd like to focus the next couple of years is getting more experience, getting my stuff out there, getting them in more hands, and just selling people on my work.
All right. So, like, if you don't mind, can you share about your day gig? This is two parts. And then how do you feel like your day gig might inspire your guitar work?
Well, it's kind of funny because you were mentioning earlier about how much you're not really into social media. Well, I've been in IT infrastructure for like 30 plus years. And for the last 5 years, I've been working for Facebook, aka Meta. I'm a production operations engineer. So when you fire up Instagram or Facebook and that cat video loads, you're welcome. I keep those machines running. I think the way that influences my work is I don't shy about trying new technologies or new things. You mentioned inlay. I don't have the patience or the steady hand to be cutting that stuff by hand. But I did want to to pretty up my fretboards a little bit. So I have a small CNC, little tiny bed that I can do fingerboard inlay, but I have to do it in like 2 different passes because it won't fit on the whole thing. But it's enough that allows me to add that little bit of inlay flair without necessarily having to learn how to cut that myself. But CNC is a lift. You got to learn how to do that. You got to learn how to draw the models in CAD if you're doing things like pickup covers and whatnot. So I don't shy away from the tech. Same thing with the pickup winding and whatnot. I think that's probably where the career choices influenced me the most. I just really have very little fear about diving into new technologies.
Very good. You hit it on the head for me. You answered a bunch of stuff. I see in your social media post that, you're using CNC, and I think you were using a laser in one of them.
So I basically adapted the CNC so I can switch it out and use a laser on there as well. It's small finish work. My bodies are all cut by hand. My necks are carved by hand. I cut the fret slots by hand. The CNC is just doing inlay work for me at this point.
I see. And I just love how you incorporate it. I wrote an article about it not too long ago, and it's kind of a hot topic, in talking with all these builders. It's like tone wood. Like, it's one of those things where it's been going on for so long. It's not an argument. It could easily be a discussion.
Right.
And just to share a little bit about this, so it's not like I just mention it and not follow up, real jerk move. Um, tone wood is like, okay, you get to work on plywood guitars now and then, or, you get a plywood guitar and it sounds great. And you make a guitar out of really expensive wood. It sounds awful and it just has no life to it. And you're like, well, then why does it matter? And, the really easy thing to do would be to complain about it. Whereas like, somebody who's a little more aware is going to say like, oh, I wonder why that is.
Right.
And essentially it comes down to the recipe and that it does actually take some work or some luck to get a really responsive instrument, where everything is working together. And the way that I would bring that roundabout to not just say that every piece of the puzzle matters is if it didn't, we wouldn't have those situations.
Right.
That recipe for that plywood guitar was perfect to make it sound amazing. At
Right.
the end of the day, it felt like a guitar because it was made to be a guitar, and you can strike out now and then. You really can. My favorite guitar that I have made right now was one of those luck situations where I just used what I had in my shop to make something for a show, and it was a perfect storm.
Right.
And the pickups that I used in it, they just look cool. I've had them for years, and they sounded awful in every guitar I put them in. And in this guitar, they sound like magic. So, like that perfect storm thing or that recipe thing, it's all so important.
Yeah.
And the thing with CNC, having worked in a production shop where CNC was used minimally, what the shop was thinking that they wanted to prevent repetitious injuries, repetitious movements, where people were getting hurt. And that just came down to teaching people to work more efficiently.
Right.
But what the machine actually did was create brand consistency and take a job that took very high skill and a really long time to do and made it pretty efficient. Not a whole lot faster,
Right.
but way more efficient. And that is always where I drew the line with CNC. I thought of it too black and white, like this is either going to do the whole job or it's not going to do any of it. Recently, I realized the value in, doing little things to, that are just really hard to repeat. Doing inlays. And I think the other half of it for me, which made it a real argument, was I just don't enjoy sitting in front of a computer. Putting this whole show together has really changed that. Now the computer's a tool.
Right.
And so I really love to see these newer luthiers embracing the CNC to do some super creative stuff.
And everybody has a different motivation for the way that they build. And I've been envious of some of the, the CNC bodies I've seen people create, or some of the neck designs. But I really get more joy out of the building of the guitar than any other part of the process. And, the meticulous work and the precision necessary and doing it by hand is really the payout for me. I tell stories. We have a very stressful performance review process at my employer. And last year I was really stressing about my particular portion of that. And so much so I was having trouble getting things out on the keyboard. Logged off. I came downstairs into my shop, carved a telly neck, and head was clear, went back upstairs, banged out my review. Everything was great. It's almost therapy for me. I come out here, I really enjoy working in the shop, and then seeing, something emerge from a pile of lumber that you can make music with. So, the CNC is great, and I embrace all kinds of technology. I 3D print, I've got the small CNC. I love all that stuff, but that is why I build guitars. Maybe someday I'll get a larger CNC and do other things with it. But for me, it's doing it by hand that really, really gets my juices going. And that's why I do it.
Oh, that's great. I'm so happy you shared that. We have this show coming up in June, and I don't have any orders I'm filling right now, like many of the other builders. So anything I'm making is specifically for the show, and I have all these crazy ideas that I'm going to be trying to work out between now and then. And is there anything that you have planned for the next show that you want to talk about?
I don't have anything planned yet. I've been kicking that around in my head, trying to figure out what I want to do. Because, like I said, I'd like to challenge myself on every build. Every build has something a previous build did not. So I learned something new on every build. So, it'll probably take a piece of wood or a piece of acetate or something to really start that idea up. We mentioned limba. The limba that I'm currently using, I bought from Albuquerque Exotic Wood. So it's definitely nice to have access to that stuff in town. Now, I wish they were, it wasn't a 40-minute drive from my house, but, such as living out in the sticks out here in Rio Rancho, you just kind of get used to it.
Yeah, are there any music stores in Rio Rancho?
There is a place that's down on Southern. It's called Strat Academy. It looks like they're mostly lessons type of stuff, but it looks like they have some instruments and what in there. But I haven't stopped in yet. Just haven't.
Yeah, in all transparency, I had a very negative interaction with them in putting this last show together. And they did the last guitar show. They had a booth there, the New Mexico guitar show, and that would have been last March. I was there as a vendor as well. And that's where I met Patrick. And it was a good show. It was over at Isleta. I don't know what happened with the guy running it. And,
Yeah.
he kind of ducked out on everybody last minute. But the cool thing is we're doing this, and I finally get to do it my way.
There's some freedom in that.
Yeah, but I called them up, and just so everybody kind of knows, it's not like a personal attack or anything. I'm not going to say anybody's good or bad or anything like that, but I called them up to tell them about the show and ask them if they had any students. My whole goal with this show was to sort of help the little guy, right? So if you're a store
Sure.
and you have a storefront, you've already got a place to represent yourself. And they said, oh, wow, that's really awesome. This sounds great. We'll definitely put a feeler out to our students and, see if they want to participate. And I know them. They said, yeah, when you get some flyers up, bring them by. And for those of you who don't know, I have a mask on all the time. Two reasons. I don't want to catch COVID. I got respiratory issues. It's not a good idea. Another reason is I have severe asthma and it really helps me breathe better. With the masks on, I don't have asthma issues. So I can go and run around, ride my bike, exist in the world without having to suck on an inhaler all day. And for that reason, I mean, it's a no-brainer for me. For other people, it's a point of not being comfortable. But
Sure.
considering I've worn a mask for almost 30 years, like doing all sorts of woodwork, like
Right.
I've had a lot of practice, so not everyone's had that much practice. But they threw me out of their store when I took the flyers for wearing a mask. And it's one of those shitty situations where
Yeah.
people let their personal politics get in the way of relating. And I was just very disappointed, and a lot of other people were disappointed. And it's unfortunate that there's people like that in the world. I'm certainly not going to tell anyone how to
Yeah.
live their life, but those instances really break community, they break
Sure.
trust.
Yeah. We have a very similar situation. I still mask at work. I still mask in many stores. If there's a crowd, I'm still masking. Same thing. I've had asthma my whole life. I've got some fragile people in my circle that I do my best to protect. And um, there's no politics in that. It's caring for myself and the people around me. So
Yeah.
I think it's a poor choice to jump on that kind of thing as some sort of bandwagon issue.
Yeah, yeah. I'm still bothered by it. I don't really talk about it a whole lot, but it comes up, and it comes up today, and I'm still bothered by it. I thought that they were relatable characters, that was
Sure.
one. Jimmy was one of the first luthiers I met here in town. I make a bunch of my tooling, and I shared some of it with him, and it was kind of cool to bounce ideas back and forth. And he's also teaches lutherie and or guitar making, whatever you want to call it. And he kind of has his niche, and I teach guitar making as well. And so being able to relate, to
Sure.
somebody, doing very similar things was really nice. And I guess it kind of hurt my feelings a little bit. And the cool thing though about that day when that happened is I left there and I was pretty fired up. And I stopped at a music school down the road, kind of on my way back into Albuquerque, and they were like, how can we get involved? What can we do?" And I was like, "Whoa!" And I stopped at another music school, and I didn't even prompt them, and they said the same damn thing.
That's awesome.
With flyers, we'll put them out, and a couple of them, the managers made it out to the show, and they're going to be participating in this next show, and that's a really wonderful thing, for sure.
Absolutely.
So I follow you on Instagram, and I mainly use Instagram now. It was kind of hard for me to get used to it at first,
Sure.
but I feel like it's really easy to use. I just feel like Facebook is annoying. It's like
Hey, it
this
puts the
page.
roof over my head.
Now I don't have to use the page manager. Instagram will populate to Facebook on its own. But do you have a website?
I own a domain. I've got a website parked there right now. That's one of the things that I've tasked myself to do a better job of this year. So I expect the website to be improving this year. Right, like I said, it's just a space holder right now. I've mainly been using Instagram to document my builds.
Yeah.
A lot of the great guitar build off folks actually favored YouTube, and that was sort of where the contest started. But YouTube's a lot of work.
Yes, it is.
And the things that got the most traction for me on Instagram are 15 20-second reels, and those are a whole lot easier to edit and make and take me less time. I found myself at times not wanting to come out and put in work on that guitar because I didn't want to do the filming. So it needed to be fairly frictionless for me, and that's why I picked Instagram. It's just easy. A photo here or there, a short snippet video. I'm not editing for hours. It's quick and dirty and it's out.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I need to get better about doing more video work. We want to get some demos on the website of some of the builds and all of the builds essentially. And I'm just so bad about it when it comes down to it. Go ahead.
It adds a layer, because you've been doing this a little longer and are a little further along in the business aspect of it. For me, it's sort of an advanced hobby at this point. And when you wrap that requirement to film and document, it sort of makes it work, and it takes away some of that creativity and enjoyment that I get out of just doing the build. So I definitely noticed the difference.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to call you old at all. I think you're a very young man. In my opinion, and however you might look at yourself as different. I'll say Doug's a nice young luthier, and it's so exciting to me to see somebody who considers themselves older embracing social media, embracing tech. It's just so inspiring. Like, I see you doing all this stuff and I'm like, man, I just gotta get my shit together.
You know,
Do
I got a leg up on the world because, like I said, I've been in IT infrastructure for over 30 years. I built the first intranet at one of the businesses that I worked at in California. They'd never heard of anything like that. So I've been online and connected forever. So it's like a toaster to me. It's just an appliance. I don't really have to give much thought. So I certainly have it easier than other people. I see sometimes struggle with it. My father-in-law, sending him a text and getting a reply is sometimes a struggle. It may take days.
Oh, that's so funny.
But not everybody is attached to that stuff the same way. So I have to be. It's part of my life. It's part of my work. I have to know what's going on.
Yeah, no, I totally skipped over this, and you just reminded me. Where are you from?
Originally from Sacramento, California. I spent most of my life there. Most of my family's still out there. I still miss quite a bit about California. New Mexico doesn't have nearly the water or the trees that I was used to, but it's starting to grow on me, and I've started to embrace some of those things into my build. I'm using things like turquoise, powdered turquoise, for inlay powders. The last guitar I built, there's a little alien head as one of the fret markers to sort of represent New Mexico history. So I'm settling into it. But my wife is a local. She was born and raised here, so that's why we're here.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. What brought you out here? There's definitely forest up north.
There is.
Yeah,
You just got to drive.
Yeah, you got to drive, and there you might run into a Sasquatch or another creature, or you never know. We used to spend a lot of time up north, and it's pretty up there. It's drastically different from California.
Yeah.
Being from California myself, I can definitely relate to that.
I think heard you mention on one of the other videos, you were more like Santa Cruz area. Is that?
Yeah, just south in the Monterey area.
Okay.
That's where I lived, and I worked in Santa Cruz for a long time. I just kind of worked throughout the whole area doing repairs for damn near all the music stores and a lot of different organizations as well. And my shop was I lived right off the 101. So if you're familiar with California, the 101, the 5, the 10, those are kind of the main arteries running north and south. That was where I called home until we moved out here, 5 or 6 years ago. I miss California. I miss some things about it. I don't miss the traffic.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's one thing. Sometimes people will complain about traffic here, and it's like you have no idea. Even a really awful day here is better than sort of an average day in Sacramento. So
yeah. Yeah, I was last time I was heading up to I got a friend that lives in Corrales, and I went up to see him to drop something off, and I was coming back on Alameda, and I hit all the red lights, and I heard somebody else when I got to where I was going talking about, oh, the traffic on Alameda is so bad right now. I'm like, it's just red lights. Like, this is we were to the highway in about 10 minutes instead of 5 minutes. Like, it's not bad at all. Oh man, that's so funny what the locals will say anywhere you go. That stuff cracks me up. Yeah, so you want to go ahead and plug your socials and before we get out of here?
Sure. You can find just about everything I do. I'm just Otto Guitars, one word, on Instagram. So easy to find. Post several times a week, so you'll see what I'm building, what I have built, what's coming up next.
All right. And for your pickups, if somebody wants to go check your pickups out.
So I have them both. They're both on Reverb and Etsy. Probably the easiest way to find them is to hit my Instagram profile, and there's a direct link right to the items.
Yeah, and I think we have all those links on the website too. I'll
Yeah,
double
I think
check.
so.
And I'm gonna have to make some time to get over to you to check those pickups out. I really want to
Yeah,
hear them. You know, maybe we can make a little video about that. I'll
sure.
bring an amp and I just love hearing pickups. I love pickups. I want to start making more, but there's so many other things I want to do, and I just keep
Oh yeah.
meeting all these amazing pickup makers. There's Mike Wolf is coming from Montana. He makes pickups, and I think you and him would get along really well. He approaches it from a very interesting point of view, and he's looking more at sort of keeping innate characteristics to some of these designs as well as resolving some issues. And
Okay.
um,
Can't wait to meet
really,
him.
yeah, I find it very refreshing. So I'm really excited to have him there, and you know, hopefully we'll have some more of your pickups there at the next show too.
Oh yeah. You
All
bet.
right. Well, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it, and I will catch up with you soon.
You bet. Thanks for time. Yeah.
All right, that was just my interview with Doug Otto of Otto Guitars here in the Albuquerque area. And thank you, Doug, for taking the time to chat with me this morning. It's always nice to get to know all of the luthiers that are a part of the High Desert Luthiery Invitational. Just get to know them a little better. You know, in our everyday lives, we don't always have time to hang out, get to know one another, visit each other's shop. Even getting all of these interviews done, you know, it's going to be quite the challenge, but it's really nice doing this podcast, taking the time to share with one another, get to know one another. I absolutely love it. And thanks again, Doug. This is Perry. I'm Perry. Ranga Guitars and running the High Desert Luthiery Invitational. You can find us on highdesertluthery.com. The YouTube channel is up, so please like any video you watch, especially if you like it, and follow us, subscribe. I don't know, hit the buttons, hit the good buttons if you can. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate all the listeners, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.